Hi everyone, how are you? And so we are live. Okay, I'm touching my hair, so please forgive me. This is my first live studio. Have you got your coffee with you? Are you ready? I see. Oh, hi. I see Lola. I see. Oh, I see 6 people here already. So I'm going to start and just introduce my guest and what we're going to do today. Okay, have you all got your cups ready? This is Coffee with Tammy. So today we're talking about mental health awareness, right? And what do we mean by that? That's what we need to find out today. Because some of us are actually going through all sorts of stuff which we're not aware of. And because we're women, we tend to forget to look after ourselves. We look after everybody else in the house except ourselves. So today we're going to find out what we need to look out for, what should be concerning, and just a checkpoint. Just let's chat about ourselves. So today I've got my hi Shalom. Thanks for stopping by. Hi Lola. So I've got my guest, Mahood Bopape. I got that right, Mahood Bopape. Yeah, and she's a clinical psychologist. I've known her, or I met her over 10 years ago. Actually, quite longer than that now. But she is I find her very easy to talk to, and I find her very down to earth about the things that she needs to speak about. And she goes straight to the point, You will have to listen. She's not like me. She's very soft spoken. So let's meet Mahood. Did I get that right? I've been pronouncing it all day.
Hello, tell me this.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm getting serious feedback on my side.
Okay. You have your cup too, Shalom. That's good. Can you hear us? Can you please indicate? Let us know if you can hear the two of us, please. Someone tell us if you can see us, if you can hear us. You're getting feedback on your end. Maybe somebody else has a phone in the house. Do I switch onto this channel? They need to switch off the volume. Can you hear me? Hi, Zanile. How are you? Okay, we can hear you. Okay, good. So we're just going to start. Are you clear now? Do you see getting the feedback? Mahood?
I can hear you, but it's a delayed response. Yeah.
There's a delayed response. Okay. So please walk with us. Oh yeah. She's very soft spoken. You're going to need to listen, eh?
No, I haven't started speaking. I'm speaking soft because so that you can hear me. Yeah,
okay.
does that sound a bit better?
Is that better now? Can you hear her now? Okay, better now. Thank you. Thank you. So,
I can hear you.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself first before we start with the questions? Okay, guys, please bear with us. There's a delay in when I speak and when she hears. So I can hear it clearly, but it's the delay on the side. Yeah. And we've got a technician working right there.
I can go back to this. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I think I've sorted the feedback on my side. Okay. Can we start afresh? I struggled to hear you initially. Can everybody hear me?
Oh, okay. Can everybody hear her? Just in case you were struggling with the sound before. So if you can hear, I know you can hear me. Can you hear her as well? Shalom, let me know if you can hear her. Zanile, can you hear her? Okay, I'm going to look down because I need to just see who is there. Oh, they can hear you loud and clear. They can hear you loud and clear. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to start all over again. She is a clinical psychologist. I met her over 11 years ago now, I think. And as gentle as she looks, she was very strict with me, hey? I think I was a bit mischievous and trying to get away with stuff. She was actually my research supervisor when I was in college. And I found her very easy to talk to. I don't know whether it's who she is or it's the result of her training. But when I wanted to do this, I believe she was the best person to do this. And I'm so glad that she accepted. She hasn't changed much. She's still very straightforward. But she gets the point across. So this is my guest, Mahood Bopape. Did I get it right? See, I wrote it down for the accent. Bopape. Yes. I got it right. I got it right. Thank you for coming to the program. Thank you for doing this for us. Yeah. So let me ask first, what does a clinical psychologist do? Because most of us can afford to say psychologist there. So maybe if you tell us we have that background and we take it from there.
Right. Well, the clinical psychology is a field of study where we basically deal with serious mental health issues, from normal to serious mental health issues. So basically, any problems related to social, psychological, mental health, we deal with it. We do not medicate. If there's any conditions that requires further medical attention, it goes to a psychiatrist.
Oh, okay. I've always made that difference. Okay. Okay. So
that's as simple as I can explain it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes it easier because when you hear excuse this, they say you're going to a shrink. You always think sometimes that there's something wrong. It's like crazy. That word mental, especially I think among us Black people. I know I've had that experience on a personal level where someone actually what I found out later was that they were having a breakdown. It was a mental breakdown, but because of, I don't know, knowledge, lack of knowledge, not knowledge, a lack of knowledge. And I won't say this being Black, I think it was lack of knowledge. We didn't know what it was immediately. So when we talk about mental health, what exactly do we mean? Because I know now it's not crazy running down the street butt naked.
That's the extreme end of it. But basically, we just means an individual's ability to be able to identify their abilities, to be able to relate, to function in society, to be a productive member of society that contributes, productively in society. So as long as we call it functional, you are still in a spectrum of mental health. There is no one that is fully mentally healthy. We all will go through an extent of being mentally impacted based on what is happening in our current situation and also our coping abilities or capabilities. So functional is, are you still able to function well in relationships? Are you able to be productive at work, at church, or in your many other settings? Once it starts affecting your relationships at work, at home, at school, or in many other settings, it becomes a reflection that there is a challenge with there's mental health challenges.
That is a good that actually makes it easy for us to understand. But because we're all different people, what if what I consider as normal, who decide what is normal? Do you understand what I'm saying? For example, sometimes I go to the mall, I see people who walk barefoot in the mall, and I'm like, why would you do that? Well, and as an adult, it's bad enough for children, but I see an adult doing it. So for me, that's I wouldn't say abnormal, but it's a thing to get used to. But for that person to get up from their house, and I'm going to the mall and they just jump into the car. So where do we where's the baseline for normal? I think that's what I'm saying.
Normality is defined by the society that we live in. So we basically say that normal is based on context of the individual. Right. For example, South Africa is a good space where we have a variety of communities that lives within the same, like Johannesburg. So Nigerians, South Africans, Zulus, Xhosa. So when we move to clans, there are cultural activities and things that might look odd from one cultural group to the next. So the context of the individual will dictate the level that we will call functionality of normality.
Okay. Okay. So when we're talking mental health awareness, what do we need to? What exactly are we saying? Because
Right.
it's like a buzzword now. Everybody's saying mental health awareness, but what
Yes.
exactly are we saying?
Right. Awareness basically means an individual's ability to recognize their state. Right. So it starts with the self. So once the self is not able to determine whether they are doing well or not, or coping well, or is able to decipher that there is a challenge, it means your mental health it's still well because you're still aware. The minute you lose awareness of your functioning, you are you are basically moving towards the further stream end of mental health disorder. But the minute your level of awareness still exists, that means you have the ability or the capability to seek assistance and support for whatever challenges that you see you are facing or are impacting on you currently. Hello, are you there?
Example. I think that will make it easier.
Are
Can
you
you
there?
give us an example? Because I think, with everything that's happened with
Right.
between last year and now, um, some of the things that we knew how to, if I should put it that way, some of the things we knew how to do, it seems like we've forgotten. Like, for example, the people who are now fighting at airports, who fight on the plane for the smallest thing, it's like we've been caged up and now we've been let out, and we can't seem to remember, which is odd, but it's like we can't seem to remember what is right or wrong or what is acceptable in society. So can you give
Mhm.
us an example of someone who has now got to that stage where they're not functional anymore?
All right. Let's talk about the impact of COVID now on everybody else.
Oh, please,
Um,
please.
right. Most of society would now basically experience trauma, because the reason why they will experience trauma, and I would explain what trauma means later on, it means that uh, COVID places us in a vulnerable situation where everyone has got the potential of either dying or being impacted negatively in terms of health by COVID. So when we think of dying and that it can happen at any second, it elicits fear in a person's coexistence. So when you are fearful, you will develop defense mechanism that will then shoot where it protects you from wanting to believe that you're going to die. So what happens when we are anxious? We can be irritable. That's how we don't become patient with each other. When we get to the airplane, things are not going your way. You just want things to be done your way because you just want to get out of that situation, because anyone and everybody that's around you has the potential of infecting you with COVID. So you become serious. Your level of paranoia increases. Right. So it's a defense mechanism. You need to be aware of your surroundings. It sounds healthy because it's a coping mechanism. But when COVID passes, you might find that other people will still have the same symptoms of paranoia, and going back to normality will become a challenge. So not being able, when paranoia goes to the extent, or the trauma is so impactful that it does not allow you to be functioning, it impacts on everyone. You're shouting at everybody at the airport, you're shouting at your children, you are irritable, you're pushing people around, you're not creating any peaceful functioning with anybody around you. Then we start realizing that there is a challenge. Then you need
Okay.
an intervention, because you're not the only person going through the same situation. So all of us are faced by the exact same impact, but our coping capabilities will be different. But if it starts impacting your functioning, if you cannot get on every day as well with everybody, and when I say I mean the majority of your settings at work, at school, um, going to the shops become a hassle. You always fight with somebody before you get off the car. Then you need to start realizing there's a challenge. You cannot be
Okay.
going on a high every day as if you are on steroids, being anxious at
Okay.
all times.
Okay. So, what do we look out for? No, but,
Right.
I don't
That
know which one should come first. Sorry, my question now is a bit of like an egg and a chicken situation. Before the lockdown and the anxiety that the COVID thing has brought for all of us, is there anything that can indicate in a person, how this person used to be? Will that affect the way they cope with the lockdown? Will it affect the way they then function now?
Right. Basically, I think that what you're trying to ask me is basically what causes one to have or to suffer from mental disorders. Right. Right. That's why I say that every person is an individual, and that's exposure to a particular situation. We will all handle it uniquely, and this will be affected by a number of factors. One of the things that is that which we call your level of predisposition, basically your genetic makeup. Right. So your genetic makeup, your family history, the way that you were brought up will determine how you relate and cope with a stressful or a challenging activity. Right. Your life experiences, as you grow, you also have life experience. So even if you had genetic predisposition with you, but the life experiences and the way that you've learned to cope and your resilience level will determine how you will handle that particular situation. You also have your biological factors. Most importantly, as women, when we go through our menstrual cycle, because we have a different genetic makeup, chemical imbalances can cause us to react towards a particular situation differently. A stressful, for example, if you have a serious medical condition like cancer, you're dealing with many factors between life and death. There is COVID, on the other hand, that will also affect how you're going to deal with the current situation because of the sense that you make of it for yourself. The use or overuse or the misuse of chemicals such as alcohol and drugs can also affect the way that you basically deal with current impactful situation. So all those factors, it can be a multiple of those factors together. It can be one particular incident that triggers that particular situation, will determine how you're most likely going to handle the situation that you're facing with. For another person, the way that you handle it, it will look irrational for them because they might have an easier position of coping with it because of previous exposures and experiences before. Right.
Okay.
So that's why I said we look at the situation based on the context of the individual to determine how functional they are in terms of managing the situation itself.
Okay. So what should we be looking out for now? Now that we've been let out, although in South Africa now we're coming back in again, So, but what should we be looking out for? I'm going to use myself as an example. I can talk about myself freely. I thought when the lockdown, the last year, I was like, oh, that's good. I like staying at home anyway. I'm just going to get lots of books to read. I'm going to watch videos till I go cross-eyed and all of that. And that was okay for a while. But then it didn't end, I even started something on Instagram where I was, counting the days down to the 21 days, like a picture diary. And then it didn't end. And it went on and on. And I realized that my loving to be by myself is only applicable, I would say, when the decision is mine, not when it was forced on me. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what should we be looking out for? Well, we all come from different backgrounds, but what should we be looking out for now? Because I've had people that I thought were coping that suddenly are not coping, and they don't even realize that they're not until you're talking to them and you realize, just like you're saying, this this behavior is not right. This shouldn't be happening. So what should we be looking out for?
Right. That's what there's a saying in English as well, like an African idiom that says that umuntu umuntu ngabantu. In English, it basically means that no man is an island. No man is an island.
Yes.
Right. So that we are because of other people. That's why we exist. So COVID, it's a phenomenon that makes us not to be social beings. It forces us and it restricts us from being able to interact and to socialize and have meaningful impact in others' lives. So a purposeless life would actually render you more stressful because it you now do not know what to focus on. Most people are living for their children, for their husbands, for their families, but they don't have a bigger uh, purpose-driven life.
Okay.
And where that is restricted and where life is lost, they actually end up losing interest in being able to go on. How do we manage this? That's why we function within a system. So as family, as friends, we need to be aware of each other. We should keep tabs on each other because we can only exist if we are able to relate to one another and to share those frustrations. I like when you say that as you start speaking to those other people, then they start being aware that there is a challenge, right? So it is through social interaction, relating to others, speaking your truth that will enable you to find out also more about yourself and to become more self-aware as the environment gives you feedback about yourself. And awareness is just not about you thinking about things, also, it's about bouncing back the impact that you're having on your environment and also the feedback that the environment is giving you back in. So family, healthy interaction is very important. Social interactions are very important. That's whether we're doing Skype, whether we're talking on WhatsApp, we're doing video calls, we're sending text messages, all those are important and they will get exhausted. The issue is because we don't know how long this phenomena is going to be.
Yeah, we
So we have
don't.
to become extremely creative as to how we're going to occupy our time with meaningful things. So we have to create a structure. We need to create processes that's going to be able to sustain us for an unexplainable extended period of time. But we also have to be creative as to what other ways can we try and be creative. Let me give you an example.
Please.
If you wake up every day and you listen to the news from morning to afternoon, you're definitely going to be depressed because you're listening everything negative about COVID, right?
Yes.
And if you've lost a loved one because of COVID, you're going to be very preoccupied with death and dying and overly protecting yourself, right?
Okay.
Now, you need to change channels to different, let's say if you watch TV, watch other channels that are going to uplift you, whether it's a Christian channel, whether it's a hobby that you like watching House or certain movies that can entertain you with your family, creating conversation that brings motivation about life itself with your family also. Creating exercise activities, even if you're not an active person, just log on to some exercise, create an exercise regimen for 5-10 minutes. Have time for motivate for what do you call, where you can either pray or you can actually have your meditation time for yourself. Self-reflective time is very significant to self-awareness. And I usually say that to patients. It's time for you to find out, how was my day? Was it good? Was it bad? If it was good, what made it this good today? If it was bad, what happened? What triggered that? How do I think I handled that situation? Is there any other way or better way that I could have handled it? What that does, by questioning yourself in that way, it prepares you so that when a similar situation occurs, you already know how best to handle it because you are now conditioning yourself to improving yourself. So self-growth becomes part of your daily intervention or meditation process where you self-reflect of your part that you played in the day, in the life. So it gives you insightful meaning of life for that particular day.
Mm. Okay. Ah, I, you said something about how hormonal changes can also affect the way we think, right? Will it take? I know, and we know that people, when women are pregnant, apart from the cravings, some other things are also happening. I have a friend who now says, I can't remember certain things. I'm very forgetful. I know that happens. Now, as someone who is already, I don't want to say emotionally imbalanced, But whose emotions are running over time already, and then we've got all of this happening. How can, because some of the people who are listening here now are their employers. How can an employer, for example, show empathy for this person? Because I know I was listening and someone said they were fired from their office, for example, because someone in the office had COVID, and they were like, why is this person still coming? And the boss is like, okay, we've measured it, you are far away. Do you understand what I'm saying? But because of the fear, because not just fear of, am I going to die, am I catching COVID, is my family member going to die, it's also, what if I lose my job? Because so many thousands have lost their job. How can, from an employer's point of view, how can they help? Or what should they be looking at in the office? Because someone might appear normal, because, you know, sometimes you're on autopilot. I'm driving home sometimes and I'm in a particular, I'm like, oh, I'm almost home. How did I get here? And I didn't hit anybody on the road. So what can we do? Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying it properly, but in my head, okay, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. In an employment space is required and is partly responsible for the overall well-being of their employees. Right. That's why we have wellness laws within corporate that governs how to support an employee. No one can be fired just by virtue of having a mental or mental breakdown, because an employment environment needs to provide proof as to how they have supported the member to ensure that they are fully functioning. Right. But these wellness interventions are within reasonable measures. Right. The employee also is accountable for their own wellness. Thus, a supervisor that directly works with an employee is responsible for informing their member if they see any changes in behavior that affects productivity as well as the member's well-being daily. Most supervisors are not open, and thus they fail in making their employees aware of themselves. And they will tell them right at the end when they are really not coping, and it seriously impacts on their productivity at work. Once you see a slowdown in pattern of performance, you sit down with the employee to say, Tammy, I see that now instead of providing 5 reports these days, your reports, there are 5, but there seems to be some unusual pattern in the quality of the work that you're providing. What is going on there? Right. So consistent feedback in terms of performance. Because some of the things, for example, I know that employers often, they will want to say that, you are abusing drugs. You don't have proof that someone is abusing drugs. You can only comment on the presenting behavior of the employee at work. You smell of alcohol. You have no proof that the smell that comes from that, it's purely alcohol. They could be just using recreational drugs that smell
Okay.
similar to alcohol. you know. So an employer can't say you have been abusing alcohol. You talk about the presenting behavior, that you don't look presentable, you look untidy, your hair is not properly combed every day now. This is not the standard of Tammy that we use. We see there's a deteriorating in your presentation. Your work quality has gone down. That's how you ensure that you support your member, by making them aware and advising them, go and see a social worker, go and see your priest, go see your pastor, go and see a psychologist, or we have means within the company that you can seek wellness intervention through there. Because all those have to be kept on record, on file of your employee. So by the time you take action of either firing or dismissing a person from employment, you have shown proof that you have actually played a supportive role in that person, just by making them aware and advising them accordingly of spaces where they can seek help if they are not willing or open to speak with you.
Whew. This takes a lot of diplomacy, because I was thinking to say, oh, you know, the way you used to dress is the way you're dressing now is deteriorating, and your work and all of that, because the employer is also going through the same situation. you know. I did think it was a bit unfair for the guy to have been fired because he raised that issue in the office. So now everybody else in the office are afraid to speak out, and even though they know there's a colleague in the office that has got COVID, it's it's new grounds, you know, that we all have to. I have another question. I've said this will be more than an hour. Or please, if you have any questions, you can. Can we post questions? Because I don't want you to ask me afterwards when I can answer. Maud, is that okay if people post
It's fine.
questions?
That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. So what do you think spirituality? I know you're a Christian. How much of it do you think we need now? If that's the we always need it. So saying how much, I really don't know how we can quantify quantify it. But how much does it play in our sanity in these times? Because with now churches are some churches have closed down because people didn't go back to church again. For example, even when the church opened, they didn't go back. And with this stage 3 that we're on now, some are also going to stay closed down again. How do you think? And I find that a number of people have not come back. It's a bit like we've forgotten how to go to church. So how is this? How does this help us? Maybe if someone is listening now and it's been one thing or the other. I know someone, for example, who lost quite a number of people in this 1 year, you know, and it's I'm not making this a preaching session. I'm just thinking with our mental state, where do we put God in all of this? How will it affect someone's mental health, especially for someone who's already had a mental issue? Again, I'm not saying crazy, guys. I'm not saying crazy.
Right. Spirituality is an important element, and we say a person is its mind, body, and soul. And your soul is something that is given by God. So taking care of your soul is the most important aspect of human well-being. I believe now that the church is also being tested to determine how independent they have enabled their members to be in being able to stay to steadfast as Christians that are able to seek God for themselves and to find solace and support from God Himself rather than from mankind. Right. So these are questioning times where, whether you're a believer or not, you start really questioning about the sole purpose of life. What does this life mean? What does God mean to me? Are these really the end times? And am I ready if these are the end times? Have I prepared myself enough for these challenging times to undertake? Or do I still desire to just be in the world where I can buy the biggest car, the biggest house? Or now that I've achieved those biggest cars and biggest house, why is God depriving me of showing them off and show the blessings that He has given me in that? So a lot of questions are there. So you need to start. It's a season for people to start really determining their true meaning of finding real meaning and purpose in being Christians and what it means for them. I always usually say that most of the I want to say religious platform. Um, the only difference, I would say, the processes are similar, but the destination is different. So you need to now start evaluating as to whether my relationship with my God is the destination that I have chosen, the direction that I want to take.
Okay.
We need to start building that relationship, have an intimate relationship with our God, have a personal, intimate relationship with God, not via any human being, but via the very same Christ that we have been preaching. And that is important for your social well-being. If you're depending on any other authority to build that relationship for you, you're going to be extremely depressed at this moment. It's time to open that Bible and find your truth through the power of the Holy Spirit to guide you in
Oh,
it.
you mean a man can't be my all and all?
The man, um, anything that is human has got flaws. We say body, mind,
Yes.
and soul, right?
Mhm.
Body, mind, and soul. Anything in body has got flaws. So it does not come with perfection. There's
Yeah.
constant work that we need to put, and our flesh will be put to the test.
Mm-hmm.
Our
Mm-hmm.
spirit has to be refined in that process. so that our soul can be at peace. So these three has to be in line: mind, body, and soul.
And
So
so,
work on your salvation every day and carry your cross daily.
okay, I think if I'm looking at the names here, I want to ask a question that I think I understand why, but I'm not really sure. Do you find, I'm asking it in two folds now. Why do people of color, let me just call all of us of color, people of color find it difficult, or that's in my experience, find it difficult to ask for professional help, rather talk to a friend or a brother, when sometimes it's actually something that needs a professional help? That is one. And two, have you seen a rise in the number of clients that you have now? Whether children,
Um,
actually, so it's three now. Okay, I'll write it down then so that I don't forget. Okay, so let's start with why don't we like to go to the psychologist?
all right. I think we need to look at it from a systems perspective. What do I mean by that? Uh, Most African, or it's not necessarily even African. Let's talk about most conservative societies, like African context. We have a hierarchy of socialization that is expected, right? If you have a king, king becomes the authority and your ruler, and you become the subject of the king. If you are a husband, you become the authority of a household. If you're a mother, you become the authority of the children. And so certain situations have been designed that if you're having marital problems, for example, you would be expected to speak with someone who is married, right?
Yes.
If you're having mental challenges as a man, for example, a man is expected to be strong. So a sign of strength is you seeking any help that requires you resolving your own personal issues. So you would not go to any space that requires you seeking assistance to resolve issues that you feel you need to resolve as the head of the family and as a man. So hence those stigma that you seeking professional help, it means that you're not strong enough as a man or as a woman to seek that kind of support. But I always say the sign of strength is the ability to understand your limitations and to seek intervention where it's necessary. Failure to recognize that you need help is just as well and seriously a sign of weakness.
So it's not a strength. I can do it by myself. It's not necessarily a strength. Sometimes,
Absolutely.
just like you said, I'm just going over what you said. We're nobody's an island. We all need other people. I'm looking at some questions here, so maybe my question should come later. Thanks for the. In what way can we, on a personal level, be supportive of people we think might be struggling at this time? And I think it's the same thing with. Oh, now it's gone. Someone else also asks us basically the same, but it says, okay, in what ways can we, on a personal level, be supportive of people we think might be struggling at this time?
Right. Um, Keep in touch. Sometimes we know that they are struggling, but we don't know what they need. People have a tendency to assume that they know what people need. We should be able to speak and ask people what they need. They will let us know what they require from us. Right? We can't be, we don't read brains. We can assume based on the changes of what we know. Tammy is usually like this, but now I see that there might be a problem. So I need to tap with Tammy and ask Tammy, are you well, my friend? I see that you're slightly different. You need to go there. Call them for a cup of tea. Invite them for a cup of tea. Now that we have
Okay.
COVID, you can also do some Skype. Give them a call. Give them a call. Send them an Uber Eats food at the house without their knowledge, and say
Okay, we're
there
stuck
it
in the
is.
house.
You're basically making someone's day up. That's how you can basically write a small letter, a small note, just to make them aware what they need, and open channels of saying that if you need anything where I can help, please let me know.
Okay, to let them know that you are there if they need to, because like you're saying, if they don't tell us what they need, we can't read their minds. I mean, we can see it, we can say this is what is wrong, but we necessarily don't know how to fix it. And I think if it's a man, they probably want to fix it. Okay, there's another question. What intervention can be taken to change the stigma to mental health? I think this tie in with what I was saying about about people of color and mental health?
Yes. Psychoeducation, what we mean by psychoeducation, more talk about mental health and mental wellness. Um, we need to speak more about it. We need to talk more about it. People who are impacted and have managed to overcome it need to start speaking and showing the results of what mental health can do. And one question that you did ask me is that, do I see an increase? Yes, I do see an increase. I do see a lot of increase, especially in with male clients. And they actually do verbalize that, it's my first time. I don't know how this gonna work, kind of thing. I'm kind of skeptical about it. But at the end of the day, they realize that this place, it's not necessarily about advice giving, it's about empowering you to find the strength within yourself to actually resolve your own challenges and define and determine your own direction of purpose, of where you would like to be.
Okay, so that's why you're here. And so, what do you think about that? When sometimes, I mean, when you're watching movies and someone's gone, they're looking for someone to say, this is what you should do. And then they're sitting on the couch and they're saying all this story and says, and how does that make you feel? And what do you think about that? Okay, so it's more about empowering. For those who are just coming in, this is my guest is a clinical psychologist. She's Maud Bopape. And she did say in the beginning, the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist is that a psychiatrist can prescribe medication, but a psychologist helps you to find your way out of it without substance of any kind. Do you attend to people with substance abuse, just, on the buy and the buy?
Yes, we do. Yes, we work with all. What happens is that both psychiatry as well as psychologists work in collaboration.
Okay.
Medication helps you to basically just suppress as well as enable you to start thinking rationally. So a psychiatrist does not give therapeutic interventions in terms of psychological transformation. A psychologist, what it does is that it helps enable you to basically make mind shifts. That means transform your ways of thinking. The reason you're stuck in the situation that you're in is because you've basically been trying things and they've not worked, or that you've been doing things the same way and they have not worked. So basically, there has to be a transformation and a shift in your cognitive functioning to enable you to start looking at things and reviewing things and finding alternative ways and other adjustive mechanisms to enable you to bring about change, transformation, or a shift in your situation.
Thank you. There's another question. Is mental health, I think, well, she says, is mental health hereditary? I think you mean if there's something wrong in it, not so much. I mean, we've all got mental health. We've all, like you said, we're not all 100% mentally there, right? So I think what she's trying to say is there can be an history of depression, for example, in your family?
Yes,
I know
that's what
sometimes
people
when
talk.
at home, when people are about to get married, they say, go and find out that there is no craziness in that family. Is it
Yes,
possible?
that's what we call genetic predisposition. Yes, it can be hereditary. So if there's a history of members of your or in your family that's had a history um, of mental disorders, there's a high likelihood that, or there is a predisposition, you have a higher predisposition to suffering a similar condition.
And there's nothing one can do. Is it like I'm just thinking
No,
if
look, it
someone
doesn't
feels
mean, look, it doesn't mean, it depends what type of mental disorders does not mean cannot be resolved. Right.
okay.
Hence we say that just by defining it enables us to know what we're dealing with. It does not make it totally static. That means unchangeable. right?
Okay.
Totally unchangeable. Because the minute we define things and name them and box them for purposes of basically writing a prescription, knowing how to make treatment and how to claim things. So
Okay.
there would not be a need for a psychologist to be here if things were meant to be static. The challenge is that most people they went and they wait for so long on so many years when there's a problem until it has set in so strongly that it becomes a challenge to retrieve it because we have to break down we have to break down the foundations that were laid to enable you to start building healthy foundations and healthy personalities in the process.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yes, something can be done. You are responsible for yourself. You need to work on yourself. Hence, I do not necessarily approve or totally agree with the concept of this is me, this is what you see and what you get. Right. So, basically, it means that you're giving yourself permission to still continue with distorted or unhealthy patterns and are not willing to improve on yourself, which can lead you to a path of pathological behavior that will lead to serious mental health conditions that might not be retrievable at the end.
Wow. I'm laughing because my pastor is asking, did you say we're all a bit crazy? I think what
Yeah,
you
I'm just using that term to make people aware that no one is perfect. No one ever is in a perfect state, right?
okay.
We are all in a process. Every day is our process of growth, potential growth every day. Now, if you're working on a particular challenge today, listen to this one. If you're working on a particular challenge for this season, the minute you master that challenge, it means that you have neglected other areas. Because focus on a particular area, it needs energy. And if you invest energy in that area, the chances are that you are in some way neglecting other aspects. That will require you to revisit and reevaluate and still work on something else.
So we have to multitask in everything. I mean, I
The brain
understand
is
what you
very
say.
powerful.
Don't neglect something, but we need to finish one thing before another, or else we have all sorts of stuff all over the place and nothing is done. Or
That's
am I,
it.
I'm not reading it right?
You prioritize, right?
Okay.
You prioritize. So when you prioritize, it doesn't mean that you'll be able to finish everything else there, right? It's priority of importance, and basically it means that once you finish with that, another something else will become a priority. Hence, we can never reach a point of perfection. We just reach a point of grace, not of perfection.
I like that. Reach a point of grace, not of perfection. Someone said something else. So I want to ask you, which is which is better, or are there situations that warrant you to choose one above the other? She's saying group interventions can be more effective. Oh, is that true?
Depends on the medical on the mental health situation. There are different types of intervention, and every intervention will be effective based on the individual makeup. Remember, when I started, I said that mental health is defined within the context of the individual, right?
Okay.
For example, another person might think that going to a psychiatry and getting medication can work for them. Another context would mean that going to an initiation school in some traditional healing process can work for them. So the individual will determine what works. We can advise on a modality that has been proven to work effectively with a particular mental disorder to the client, and they can make that decision. And based on their makeup, that can be either effective for the individual or not.
Okay. Okay. So each one will be taken as whew, each one will be taken on individual basis.
But there are
Okay.
others there are others, Tammy, that are scientifically proven to be more effective with particular mental disorders.
Okay. 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 I do worry though about people getting addicted, because I know someone who I would not say is an addict, but I would not say is an addict. You know, they've been on this medication whew, for a long time, over 30 years. And I know when the medication started, it was to do with depression. And I think for me especially, that's where I got the impression that if you go to, I didn't know the difference. So thank you for telling us that between a psychologist, if you go to a psychiatrist, there's got to be something wrong with you, and that's why they're giving you medication, and you're not going to be well. You just give me medication so that you don't start running around the street. That was, my the way I thought about it. So is there that chance of someone becoming addicted?
We call that dependency. Yes.
Okay, sorry. You see, I said
Yes,
psychiatric, I
not
said
fine. And so
dependent. Are
we
we not
call
being
that
diplomatic?
a person can be dependent on substances as
Mm-hmm.
long as they only if they are not using it in the prescribed manner. Right.
Really?
Yes. The medication must be used for the intention that it was intended for. Hence,
Okay.
if you go to get medicated by a medical practitioner or a psychiatrist, as in a mental health specialist like a psychiatrist, you constantly are under review. The review is to ensure that the medication is having the effect that it's supposed to have. If
Okay.
it's for psychiatric medication in particular, you still have to see a clinical psychologist to ensure that we make shifts, especially if it's within the early detection of a mental disorder, so that you don't become dependent on medication or you're not allowed to come off. Because if your chemical makeup requires that you should constantly be on medication to ensure that you're calm all the time, that you don't lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, if it gets to that point, you will have to use your medication regularly because it keeps you functional. But in the beginning, it is required that if you're seeing a psychiatrist and you're on medication, you have to see a clinical psychologist, and you constantly go for medical review to wean you off the medication. Because once we do, when they talk about a doctor, you will go for medical attention, and they will say there is no basis for your medical condition. So we think it's psychological. You need to see a psychologist. So making cognitive shifts, it actually also makes adjustment to your chemical mechanisms, which enables you to become functional by ensuring that you have a healthy pattern of interacting with the environment. So the healthier you are in managing and being in control with your environment, the better your health in general, because there
Okay.
is a relationship between mind, body, and soul. So when your cognitive and emotional state is well, it means your medical conditions, most of them will fall away.
Okay. Okay. There's a question here. How do we emotionally support people who are grieving the loss of a spouse, child, parent, loved one? How do we emotionally support them? I really need to listen to this. I'm very bad.
Grieving, bereavement is a normal process of loss.
Okay.
Now, people assume that when people are grieving, we should make them keep quiet. You go to the funeral and they keep on saying, it's going to be okay. Okay, calm down.
Mm-hmm.
People need to mourn. The challenge is how long does the mourning take place? So if
Okay.
you are supporting someone who's mourning, you give them the space to choose to engage and how to engage. Don't assume that they need a hug. Don't assume that they need a tissue. Sometimes leave the tears to roll, right? So leave the people to grieve. Visit them, give them space to grieve, because at the process of grieving, sometimes people do not need people to visit them, but
Okay.
we need to check in with them. There's a difference. We need to check in with them to ensure that they are still there and that they still need us. And I said previously, make sure that we are accessible. They know that they can come to us when they require whatever form of support from us. So we don't neglect them. Be available, be present, pop in, not every day, unless if someone says, please come and see me tomorrow again.
Okay. And people grieve differently. Hey, how do we? And some people say it's unnatural. Someone died. Someone lost his wife some time ago, and that very day, I had to conduct a service somewhere, And I couldn't understand. Did you put that aside, or is that just their way of grieving? I know some people, they want to lose themselves in their work. Like, I don't want, but is that okay, or are they in denial of what has happened? Should we just let them be? This is the way they want to do it. They want to, just like you're saying, some people want to be alone. They don't want to talk, and sometimes we are able to understand that. Some want to cry, and I'm okay for people crying. I cry. I'm okay for people crying, but what if someone is just going on with life like life is normal, and to me watching or others watching, that there's something wrong here? And also, when is it too long? I mean, how do we determine for someone that you've had enough time, get up and go? When do we determine that? And should we be the
Yeah.
one to say that?
Yeah. The question would be, who has determined what grieving should look like? Basically, we don't know enough, we don't even know the nature of the relationship that the two people really had, whether it was close, whether it was distant, whether it was tarnished. There were many issues that defines that relationship. So
Yeah.
every person needs to be allowed to walk their process. Grieving can even happen years later on, after the person has died. So when we prescribe to the person how to mourn, are we being fair on them and their personal process? So that's why I say we need to leave people to choose how they want to move on. If for them getting on, it's going to catch up later on, and it will be time for them to grieve. Because others still come back to therapy and they say, I was the eldest one and had to be responsible for everything, and I didn't have time, and I had to make sure that everything works and everybody is okay. And I forgot about myself. But the time has arrived, which was when they're here to say, I now realize that I neglected myself and I had not really made peace with that process. That will be the time for them to start dealing with their grief or loss.
Okay. Okay. Oh, wow. This has been an eye opener. I hope somebody's been helped now. I hope and if, before I forget, subscribe before you leave. Okay, press that button and put a notification. But on a serious note, this is something that some of us don't even know that we're going through. Some of the things that you've spoken about today, some of us don't know that we're going through it. We're just working on autopilot, and especially, like I said, mothers, they just forget about we just forget about ourselves. We just go on doing what life requires us to do. So I hope somebody's been helped now. I hope we know how to help somebody else, or at least be able to notice the things that are not as should be with that person. And we'll be careful not to, I will be careful not to see anything that is out of the way as abnormal behavior, and just let people be. Thank you so much for doing this. I very much appreciate it. And for all those who have tuned in, well, it's going to be there, so you can always watch it. I hope somebody has been helped. Yes, thank you, thank you. And yeah, so we need to remember the one thing that I've picked, well, apart the other things, for every day, we need to, at the end of the day, how was the day? We need to ask ourselves that question: how was today? If it was a bad day, what made it a bad day? And then work towards not doing those things. Especially, I mean, if you want to change, then obviously you can't do the same thing and expect it's going to be a different outcome. So we need to do that introspection for ourselves every day, and to look around us and notice those people that seems not to be putting it together anymore, or are not getting it together anymore, and just make ourselves available to them and let them know. There's no point saying, well, she didn't ask me anything. She didn't tell me. We need to let them know that we're there if they need to talk, if they need help. And if anybody feels like sending Uber Eats, like coffee and chocolate cake, chocolate ice cream, do not tell my pastor, please. It will be on my case. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. And can I, if people ask me, because I know she's got a private practice in Edenville, so if someone asks, can I give your information out? I won't put it out here, but if someone needs it, can I give your information out?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I'm looking to see if there's any Okay, it's just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I'll talk to you privately after this.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks our engineer behind the scene there.